Gentlemen, it's time we talk about the women we choose, because the truth is the wrong woman won't just break your heart, she'll break your spirit. And in today's world with so much noise and surface level attraction, it's easy to fall for the image and ignore the damage underneath. So let me give it to you straight. Here are 6 signs of a low value woman. And if you see even 2 or 3 of these, walk away with your dignity intact. 1. Rabecca, she always plays the victim. Every bad relationship, his fault. Every job loss, they were jealous. She wears blame like perfume, and you'll suffocate in it. She never looks inward, and a woman who can't own her part in things will never take responsibility for how she hurts you. 0.2. She lives for social media validation. If she's constantly posting to get attention, if her self-worth rises and falls with likes, she is not looking for real connection. She's building an audience, not a relationship, and you'll end up feeling like a spectator in her show. 0.3. She uses her beauty as a weapon. There's nothing wrong with being attractive, but if that's all she offers, if she manipulates, teases, or plays power games using her looks, you'll always feel like you're buying access instead of earning love. A woman who knows her worth, it doesn't need to weaponize it. 0.4. She disrespects your boundaries, laughs at your standards, pressures you to change, crosses lines and calls it just joking. That's not confidence. That's control. Protect yourself. A woman who mocks your boundaries will eventually destroy them. 0.5. She competes with you instead of supporting you. When you succeed, she gets distant. When you shine, she finds a way to dim the light. That's not love. That's insecurity. A real woman builds beside you. A low-value woman tries to outshine you or bring you down to her level. 6, she's not growing spiritually, emotionally, mentally. If she's stuck in the same drama, the same mindset, the same excuses, she's not just holding herself back, she's holding you back too. You can't elevate your life with someone who's committed to staying stuck. So protect your peace. Don't chase beauty at the cost of sanity. Don't confuse attention for affection, and remember, the right woman multiplies your value, she doesn't subtract from it. Choose wisely, your future depends on it. A woman who constantly plays the victim is emotionally draining and subtly destructive. At first glance, you may feel sorry for her. She tells stories of being wronged by ex-boyfriends, friends, family, co-workers. Everyone in her past, according to her, has done her wrong. She positions herself as the one who's always been taken advantage of, misunderstood, or betrayed. And if you're a kind-hearted man, you might fall into the trap of wanting to rescue her, to be the one who finally treats her right. But here's the truth that's hard to swallow. This pattern of victimhood isn't about past pain. It's a strategy, a weapon cloaked in helplessness. When a woman habitually plays the victim, she's shifting responsibility away from herself. No matter what happens, she refuses to self-reflect. She'll never admit when she's the one at fault, when she overreacted, or when her own choices contributed to the situation. Instead, she flips the script, painting herself as innocent while vilifying others. This creates a narrative where she is always the wounded party and never the cause of any conflict. Over time, this mindset becomes toxic. It manipulates the people around her into constantly defending, protecting, and apologizing to her, even when they've done nothing wrong. This kind of woman will use guilt as a leash. If you try to express your concerns or establish a boundary, she'll find a way to make you feel like you're hurting her. She'll cry, withdraw, or start recounting all the ways she's been mistreated before, lumping you into that same category, even if your actions were reasonable and fair. And so you learn to walk on eggshells. You start to keep the peace just to avoid triggering another meltdown. But the truth is, there is no peace. Because in her world, someone always has to be the bad guy. And if it's not someone else, it'll be you. This pattern of victimhood is often deeply rooted in insecurity. She may not even realize she's doing it, but that doesn't make the effect on you any less damaging. Her inability to own her behavior stunts emotional growth for both of you. Healthy relationships require accountability, self-awareness, and a willingness to work through problems together. A woman who plays the victim will sabotage that growth at every turn. She doesn't want resolution, she wants sympathy. She wants to be right, not to be understood. And when her narrative no longer fits reality, she'll distort it to keep the spotlight on her pain. If you're not careful, you'll find yourself emotionally drained, constantly trying to prove that you're not like the others who hurt her. You'll exhaust yourself trying to fix what was never yours to fix. In the end, her victimhood becomes a prison for both of you. And while she may appear fragile on the surface, her manipulation is far from innocent. It's calculated, it's consuming, and if you don't recognize it for what it is, it will quietly erode your confidence, your happiness, and your sense of self. A woman who constantly seeks validation from social media is caught in a cycle of external approval, and if you're in a relationship with her, you'll feel like you're competing with a digital audience you can never see or satisfy. Her self-worth is tied to the number of likes, comments, shares, and followers she gets. She may post selfies daily, obsess over filters, and constantly refresh her feed just to see how people are reacting. At first, it might seem harmless, maybe even fun. But over time, it reveals something deeper, a lack of internal stability and emotional grounding. When a woman craves online validation, she's essentially outsourcing her confidence. Instead of feeling secure in who she is, she relies on others to tell her she's beautiful, desirable, or interesting. She's not building self-esteem from the inside out. She's renting it from strangers who barely know her. And because that kind of attention is fleeting, she's always hungry for more. She'll spend hours curating the perfect image, crafting the ideal caption, and scanning comments for praise. If the engagement is high, she's on a high. If it's low, her mood crashes. This emotional roller coaster doesn't stay confined to her phone. It spills into real life, into your relationship. You may start to notice she's more focused on her image than on reality. She's more interested in how things look than how they feel. A romantic dinner becomes a photo opportunity. A meaningful conversation gets interrupted for a story update. Moments that should be shared between the two of you are sacrificed for public consumption. It's no longer about genuine connection, it's about the optics. And in that environment, intimacy starts to fade. You begin to feel invisible, like a background prop in her carefully constructed highlight reel. Over time, this need for social media validation can lead to jealousy, insecurity, and emotional distance. If she doesn't get the attention she craves from you, she might seek it elsewhere through flirtatious comments, revealing photos, or subtle games designed to stir engagement. You may try to express concern only to be brushed off or accused of being insecure, but deep down, you know what's happening. She's addicted to the high of being noticed, and no amount of real love can compete with the shallow thrill of digital praise. This type of behavior also creates a distorted sense of reality. She begins to measure herself and even your relationship by unrealistic standards. Comparison becomes constant. If another woman gets more likes, she feels inadequate. If someone else posts about their relationship, she pressures you to do the same. And suddenly, your relationship isn't a sacred space, it's a performance, something to be evaluated, judged, and validated by people who have no idea what's really going on behind the scenes. Being with a woman who seeks validation from social media means you're always fighting for her attention, her presence, and her authenticity. And while she may look confident online, inside she's often filled with doubt, comparison, and emptiness. In the end, no app can give her the affirmation she truly needs. That has to come from within. And until it does, she'll keep chasing illusions while the real moments pass her by. A woman who uses her looks as leverage may seem confident and captivating at first. Her beauty can be disarming, drawing people in with charm, allure, and presence. But beneath that surface lies a mindset that weaponizes attractiveness for control rather than connection. She knows she's attractive, and instead of seeing it as just one part of who she is, she treats it as her main source of power. She uses her appearance not to connect with others emotionally or intellectually, but to manipulate, dominate, and get her way. This kind of woman often carries herself like she's doing you a favor just by being in your presence. She expects admiration, attention, and special treatment simply because of how she looks. Compliments aren't appreciated, they're expected. And when she doesn't get the reaction she wants, she may pout, withdraw, or even lash out. Her beauty becomes a currency and everything becomes transactional. You begin to feel like your value in her life depends on how much you validate her or what you're willing to do to keep her around. In relationships, this dynamic can be incredibly toxic. She may flirt openly to get what she wants, use seduction to avoid accountability, or threaten to withhold affection when things don't go her way. Instead of building a connection rooted in mutual respect and emotional support, she relies on visual appeal to stay in control. You're not seen as a partner, but more like an audience, there to admire, praise, and serve. And if you ever challenge her or stop playing along, she may accuse you of not appreciating her, of being blind to what you have. Over time, this creates an imbalance. You might find yourself doing more, giving more, sacrificing more just to maintain her attention or affection. And even then, it never feels like enough. Because it's not about who you are or what you share. It's about how well you play into her image of being desired, envied, and in charge. If she feels like you're not boosting her ego, she'll look elsewhere, often leaving you questioning your own worth. What makes this even more complicated is that society often rewards this behavior. Women who use their looks to get ahead are often praised, envied, and followed. But behind the filters and poses, the truth is harder to see. When everything is built on appearance, nothing runs deep. No room for vulnerability, no space for growth. Because once the charm fades or the looks begin to change, as they inevitably do, what's left? Being with a woman who uses her beauty as leverage is emotionally exhausting. You're not loved for who you are, but for how well you serve her image. Real relationships are built on more than attraction. They're built on values, communication, support, and growth. But with her, it's all about control. And her looks are the strings she pulls. And if you're not careful, you'll lose yourself trying to keep her impressed, when in truth, she was never really looking for connection, only control. A woman who disrespects boundaries reveals a deep disregard, not just for your comfort, but for your very identity. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They're not walls, they're healthy guidelines that say, this is what I'm okay with and this is what I'm not. In a respectful relationship, those lines are honored, but a woman who constantly crosses them, mocking your standards, pushing your limits, or ignoring your expressed needs is not being bold or confident, she's being controlling. At first, it might seem subtle. Maybe she jokes about things that make you uncomfortable, brushing it off as harmless teasing. You ask her to stop, and she does for a while, but then it happens again and again. You start noticing how your words don't seem to hold much weight. If you express a need for space or time to focus on your goals, she accuses you of being distant or selfish. If you tell her that something she's doing makes you uncomfortable, she flips it on you, saying you're being too sensitive or controlling. Over time, these small violations begin to pile up, and what you once shrugged off starts to feel like suffocation. A woman who disrespects your boundaries doesn't just ignore your words, she tests them. She sees how far she can go before you push back, and if you don't stand firm, she pushes further. This isn't about compromise, it's about power. Whether it's demanding constant access to your time, invading your privacy, or dismissing your emotional needs, she operates under the belief that her desires take priority over your well-being. And if you try to enforce a line, she often uses guilt, shame, or emotional manipulation to make you feel like you're the one in the wrong. This behavior isn't always loud or aggressive. It can be quiet and insidious. She might make decisions for both of you without asking, or subtly pressure you into doing things you're not comfortable with. She may even act possessive, framing it as care or passion, when in reality it's control. You begin to lose your sense of independence. You stop voicing your needs because it doesn't feel worth the argument. You sacrifice your boundaries for the sake of keeping the peace, but in doing so, you slowly lose yourself. Being with someone who disregards your boundaries can have lasting effects. It chips away at your confidence, your voice, and your ability to trust your own instincts. You start questioning what's normal, what's acceptable, and whether your needs even matter. But they do. They always have. A healthy relationship is one where both people feel safe to express themselves and are respected for who they are. When a woman disrespects your boundaries, she's not loving you, she's controlling you. And if you allow that kind of behavior to continue, it doesn't just damage the relationship, it damages you. When a woman competes with you instead of supporting you, the relationship becomes a battleground rather than a partnership. At first, it might look like confidence. She seems driven, ambitious, and proud of her accomplishments, and there's nothing wrong with that, until her need to one-up you begins to show. In a healthy relationship, both people lift each other up. They celebrate wins together, carry each other through losses, and work toward shared goals. But with her, it's different. Every achievement you make feels like a threat to her ego. Every step forward you take becomes a challenge she has to outrun. She might suddenly dismiss your successes or try to minimize them. If you get a promotion, she'll respond with, "That's nice, but I've been working way harder." If you express excitement over something you've built or accomplished, she'll instantly shift the focus back to herself. And if she can't outdo you, she'll start to criticize or downplay what you've done. This kind of behavior doesn't just hurt, it creates distance. You start feeling like you can't fully share your victories with her because instead of support, you're met with resentment. This constant competition isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up in small, passive-aggressive ways. She may joke about how she's the smarter one or that she'd be more successful if she had the same opportunities as you. She might even take credit for your ideas or try to insert herself into your moments of recognition. What she's really doing is trying to stay on top, trying to prove that she's better, more capable, or more important than you. And if you don't notice it right away, it's because the competitiveness is often masked as ambition or keeping the relationship balanced. But relationships aren't a scoreboard. Love is not a competition. It's a partnership where two people support each other's growth and push each other to be better, not out of envy, but out of love. When you're with someone who competes instead of supports, you start to feel isolated. Your drive begins to shrink because you no longer feel like you have someone cheering you on. You might even start dimming your light just to keep the peace, downplaying your progress so she doesn't feel insecure. And that's where the damage begins, not just to your relationship, but to your own self-worth. Instead of being your teammate, she becomes your rival. And instead of building something together, you're both just trying to stay ahead of each other. That kind of energy drains the relationship. It kills intimacy, erodes trust, and turns love into rivalry. Eventually, you find yourself walking on eggshells, fearing that any moment of success might trigger tension instead of celebration. True partnership means sharing joy and growing stronger together. But with her, it's always a contest, and the prize isn't love. It's control, dominance, and the illusion of superiority. A woman who has no personal growth goals may seem content, easygoing, or even low mental at first. She doesn't push too hard, doesn't talk about the future much, and seems satisfied with the way things are. But as time passes, it becomes clear that there's something missing, an inner drive, a sense of purpose, and the desire to become better. Personal growth isn't just about ambition or achieving something grand. It's about evolving, learning, and striving to become a better version of yourself. When she lacks that, it creates a vacuum that eventually affects not only her, but the relationship as a whole. Without any goals or sense of direction, her life tends to revolve around distractions and routines. She may spend hours scrolling social media, watching TV, or gossiping, but there's no real investment in learning, building skills, or improving herself emotionally, spiritually, or intellectually. You might try to talk about your dreams, your plans, the things you want to create or accomplish, and she nods politely, but there's no passion in her response, no vision of her own to share. Over time, this gap starts to feel bigger. It becomes harder to connect because while you're trying to move forward, her lack of personal growth isn't just about career or education. It also shows in how she handles emotions, challenges, and relationships. She may be stuck in old patterns, repeating the same arguments, holding on to the same insecurities, and blaming others for her problems instead of taking responsibility. When someone doesn't aim to grow, they also stop reflecting. There's no accountability, no maturity, and no willingness to confront hard truths about themselves. She may be emotionally reactive, closed off to feedback, or simply resistant to change. And in a relationship, that means you're always the one adjusting, always the one carrying the emotional weight. This stagnation eventually becomes frustrating. It's hard to build a future with someone who isn't even trying to grow in the present. You may feel alone in your journey, like you're constantly encouraging her, motivating her, trying to light a fire she refuses to tend. And if you ever bring it up, she might get defensive, accuse you of trying to change her, or tell you that you're never satisfied. But it's not about changing who she is. It's about her choosing to evolve into who she could be. A relationship is a reflection of two individuals coming together to build something greater. If one person is constantly growing, learning, and striving, while the other remains stagnant, imbalance sets in, resentment grows, conversations become shallow, the connection weakens, because without personal growth, there's no new energy, no inspiration, and no shared momentum. A woman with no personal growth goals isn't just pausing her life, she's holding back yours. And if she's unwilling to invest in herself, she won't be able to invest in the relationship either, no matter how much you try to carry both. Here's a powerful and fitting ending for your speech. 6 signs of a low-value woman. Protect yourself, direct, empowering, and emotionally grounded. Gentlemen, it's time to stop settling for surface-level charm and start looking deeper. A low-value woman may be beautiful, engaging, or even exciting at first, but if she constantly disrespects your boundaries, thrives on attention, competes instead of supports, or avoids growth, she's not a partner. She's a distraction, and distractions destroy destiny. You deserve a woman who adds peace to your life, not chaos. Who sees your potential and nurtures it, not someone who drains your energy just to feed her ego. Protect your heart, protect your purpose, and stop confusing tolerance with love. The moment you stop chasing low-value behaviors, the moment you make room for high-value connection, never forget your standards shape your future. Don't just guard your heart, guard your life, because the right woman won't need to be chased, she'll be aligned.